Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, yes, still camping, yes, it's another absolutely gorgeous day out, and yes, we're going to talk some news while we go on this morning walk. So first up on the docket, we're talking about shaders and overlays for Retroarch. Now you may be familiar with something called EchoArch, and it's now called PocketArch. And PocketArch version 4.0 has just dropped. In my opinion here, PocketArch brings some very nice visual touches to Retroarch, especially if you're on mobile. And they say here version 4.0 brings animated transparent overlays to match shaders perfectly and major shader design upgrades across the board, among other features. The standalone overlays remain if you don't wish to use the shaders, or feel free to use the shaders with any of the controller overlays. Now, in addition to the transparent animated overlays, they've added smooth and animated button effects for supported systems. And they've added a couple new systems here for support, PSP overlays and shaders and N64 shaders. If you are curious about this one and wanted to learn more about it, like everything we talk about, links are in the description below right at the bottom. And you know the tagline there. Anyways, next up here, we're still talking about emulation and we're switching to something pretty interesting here. So if you're familiar with Sega Saturn emulation, you may be familiar with something called Ymir. And Ymir has been really making improvements in leaps and bounds, and version 0.1.5 has just dropped. So they say here this update focuses on compatibility improvements, includes a number of quality of life upgrades, and introduces the first couple of graphics enhancements, de-interlacing and transparent mesh polygons. If you wanted to check out the effects of these visual enhancements, I recommend checking out their GitHub. They showcase Panzer Dragoon Saga as well as Fighters Megamix and Daytona USA, so you can see the side-by-side comparisons. There's also been a bunch of UI improvements and even more. I would say this is a pretty big update, and updating is also easier. They say here, starting from version 0.1.5, which is this release, the configuration file will store relative paths, making it a breeze to transfer files between versions, or if you want to move the emulator folder somewhere else in your system. Next up, we're still talking about emulation, and this could be big or it could not be. I'm leaning towards maybe not as big as it seems, but at the same time here, who knows? Let me know your thoughts on this one. So TeknoParrot has a very lengthy tweet here, and again, like everything we talk about, links are in the description below. But they're accusing Retrobat of hiding the terms of service and privacy policy for TeknoParrot. So TeknoParrot says, important discovery, Retrobat, French open source project, has been bypassing TeknoParrot's consent screen since August 2024 by writing has read policies equals true to config files. This means users never saw our terms of use or privacy policy, but our software thinks they agreed to everything. Now, I don't know about you, but I would say consent on this stuff is probably pretty important. And TeknoParrot says this highlights why proper consent implementation matters. It protects both users and developers from legal complications. And Retrobat responded. And here's Retrobat's response. And man, that sun's in my eyes. Here, I'll switch around, pull an Uno reverse, and put it in your eyes. We'll have some fun. So Retrobat says, hello, you could have contacted us directly. Please note that we do not provide TeknoParrot, and Retrobat users have to download TeknoParrot by themselves and install it and then run it before starting a game within Retrobat. So let me know your thoughts about this one. 1, do you think it's a big issue? 2, do you think it could have been solved easily if TeknoParrot just reached out to Retrobat and said, hey, can you fix this? There's an issue here. And do you think TeknoParrot should have went to social media to have the issue solved? Let me know your thoughts. And speaking about stuff on social media, next up we're talking about a Twitter post here from Saragon. So there's a brand new project called ShadPKG. I don't think there's a direct affiliation with the PS4 emulator ShadPS4, but they say here ShadPKG is a tool for deriving PKG packet encryption keys for PS4, written in C++, and it's up on GitHub. So Saragon says, I am happy to finally release ShadPKG, a tool that can decrypt and depackage PKG files in their entirety. You can find it at this repository, soon to be available directly in PKG Toolbox. And there's a link there to their GitHub. And speaking about interesting tools, next up we're talking about Android 16. And I think this here will interest quite a few people if you're, I guess, interested in device security. So it says Android 16 can warn you that you might be connected to a fake cell tower. Android 16's new network notification feature can potentially expose when your device is connected to a fake cell tower. Now, some of you may be aware about fake or insecure cellular mobile networks designed to take data. If I'm not mistaken, most of these are 2G networks. Anyways, Android 16 is getting a feature to disable connecting to 2G networks. However, and this is the big however, this feature is not just going to work on any mobile device out there. It's got to work on newer hardware. For example, my Pixel 9 Pro XL will not work with this feature because I guess the hardware is incompatible. The modem in this thing can't turn off 2G networks, at least from my understanding. So on newer devices with Android 16, this feature may be available. Now, without going down a rabbit hole here, I would say malicious cell networks are probably a little bit harder to detect on your device than something like a malicious Wi-Fi network. And this is one of the many, many reasons why I suggest probably always trying to use a VPN when you can. I do have a couple in the description below that I recommend. I do receive a kickback because I partnered with them because I chose to based on evaluating their services. But anyways here, it's just, I'm glad to see this feature, and again, not to put on a tinfoil hat or anything like that, but at the same time, I do value security, and hopefully this is rolled out to a bunch of devices and a bunch of devices end up supporting it. And speaking about security stuff, next up here, we're talking about Denuvo and a conference in Spain. Now, if you're in Spain and you're attending NN 2025, there's possibly going to be a very interesting talk about reverse engineering Denuvo in Hogwarts Legacy. Now, I'm assuming this is going to make its way over to YouTube at some point in time, but at the same time here, it's a very interesting talk being delivered by Maurice. I might mispronounce the last name, Human. I probably mispronounced that one. Anyways, here, I'm curious to see what they have to say. I'm very curious to learn what steps they took, and I'm hoping it's translated to English. And speaking about games, next up, we're talking about something that seems to have quite a few people excited on mobile, and that is the arrival of Friday Night Funkin. And this is up for, it's not up for pre-order. I mean, you can pre-install it. It hasn't released just yet. And it does contain ads, and there are in-app purchases. So I'm curious to see if this is going to be microtransaction or just a one-time fee. But anyways here, if you're a fan of rhythm and beat games, you might be a fan of this one coming to mobile. And speaking about mobile or handheld gaming, next up here, we're talking about the OrangePi Neo. And we still don't have a release date for this upcoming handheld device that's going to be running Manjaro, but we do have pricing. So pricing here has been released for the two different models. The base model, which features an 7840U with 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of storage, is priced at $450. And the better model here, the 8840U with 32 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of storage as well, will be $550. Now, overall, I don't know about you, but this has really piqued my interest. I mean, I'm very curious to see how Manjaro Linux functions on a handheld device and what that operating system entails. It's going to be super interesting. I'm curious to see when this device is going to release. And I'm very curious to see reviews of this device once it does release. And speaking about devices connecting to Steam, last up here, we're talking about Steam. So the Steam Client Beta just got a brand new update. And we talked about this one before when they added in support for 8-bit DOE controllers, or more support for 8-bit DOE controllers. And it seems they're adding in even more support and compatibility for 8-bit DOE controllers. So for Steam input, they say improve support for 8-bit DOE gyro on controllers with updated firmware. And I think that's an awesome win for 8-bit DOE and an awesome win for gamers in general. I don't know about you, but I'm a huge fan of 8-bit DOE controllers, specifically their Pro 2. But anyways here, this is just in beta. It hasn't been released yet to the main branch of Steam. So if you are looking to test it out, you absolutely can. There may be bugs, there may be issues. And there also may be extra reporting on the in-game overlay, which we previously talked about in a different video. So yeah, if you're looking for more data in that overlay, for example, for CPU and GPU usage and benchmarking, I usually just use the task manager, but there are other ways to do it and probably other better ways. Anyways, here Steam is getting that update. It hasn't hit the main channel just yet, but it is on the beta. Now, before we end this video, there was a little baby bunny that I saw on the way to my filming location here, so I'll just show that on screen now so you can take a quick peek to say that there was fluff in this video. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff, except that little baby fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Feel free to discuss anything we talked about in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.